Enforcement Bureau. Don't often interact with it. We hope, but they're out there and they have a job to do. Our guest today is Lark Hadley. He's the Regional Director, Region 3 of the FCC Enforcement Bureau. And that covers half the U.S. From North Dakota to Guam. And uh, Lark is not a stranger to broadcast. He was a broadcaster for 40 years, running radio stations, engineering, designing equipment, and premier networks for quite a few years there. And so, like many, he had a first class radio telephone license, extra class amateur, and he's got the little letters from education, BSEE, MBA, PE. You've got a good guy here who loves broadcasting. He wants, I've told the story a number of times about my first encounter with the Enforcement Bureau. Dane Erickson was driving a truck, and I was just doing backup for a station when he knocked on the door and introduced himself. And he says, you need to calibrate your mod monitor, which, of course, was a surprise to me, but he invited me out to his van, showed me what was going on. We took care of this. He said, thank you. And that was it. He went on his way, which I thought was really the way that we should interact with the FCC. Isn't quite that way today, but there are many reasons for that. We're not really going to get into that to a large extent, but what we want to do today is the first of what I hope are several times that Lark will be with us. And we want to talk about the complaint portal today. And that is, well, how did those stations out there get turned in, or the pirates that are operating in many cities? We sometimes see folks here on this Thursday gathering or on the broadcast list, and they're moaning and crying because there is a pirate in their neighborhood. And what do? Well, telling me about it isn't going to help. Phoning up the FC is not going to help, because they have a procedure that gets it into the system, and they will do something about it. So, Lark, can we invite you now to join us? And you have a little presentation, and we can answer some questions. But again, we're not going to answer questions about other practice of the FCC. We want to talk about the Enforcement Bureau complaint portal today.
Okay, thank you, Barry. Before I get started, can you hear me okay?
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
555.
Okay, awesome. I just want to say thank you all for coming. I thought there might be 4 or 5 people on today because, wow, how exciting can the FCC complaint portal be? But I've looked over all the folks who have logged in, and I see so many dear friends. Thank you. I want to take this as a personal moment to just reflect on how good the industry has been to me. I started in ham radio like many of you, got rescued by mentors in broadcasting. Dear friends, Jack Selmeyer comes to mind, Ron Rackley comes to mind, who, many of these giants didn't suffer fools well, but for some reason they put up with me. So I'm very grateful for all of you, and many of you on this call are just dear friends. So thank you. So I'm going to put on my old man glasses because I have reached that stage. So while many field agent investigations are started from internal FCC referrals, industry sourced, well-researched and well-written complaints are the lifeblood of FCC field enforcement investigations. Now, in years past, you would reach out directly to the FCC field office or your friendly field agent that you knew, probably personally, via telephone call or most recently email, and list your complaints, which might be turned into an investigation. This isn't done that way anymore. In fact, we now have a much better system, a web complaint portal that efficiently and effectively takes your complaint information and sends it immediately to the correct manager. Now, this does several things. It makes sure that the complaint includes necessary information.
Are you going to share your
It
screen?
ensures, I will in a moment.
Okay.
I tell you what, I can do it now because it has a title screen. And let's do that so we don't get too confused here. All right, let me know if that comes up.
Perfect.
Okay. So this does many things, this new complaint portal. It makes sure that the complaint includes necessary information. It ensures that it is received promptly. It doesn't get lost. And it makes sure that you immediately get a receipt with a complaint number. That's important. Now, after you go through this process, which we will talk about, I'll just give you an honest comment. If for some reason, if you haven't heard back from an FCC field agent regarding your complaint, you can reach out and ask. Ask if anyone received it, ask if the FCC has any further questions, but you do not need to file another complaint. Another benefit of having a web portal complaint system is that it helps the FCC field offices organize the investigations in an efficient manner. Public safety complaints are the highest priority, and interference is also considered a high priority. Now, some have asked if they can file a complaint anonymously, and the answer is yes, with a caveat. You must leave contact information in your complaint so that we can reach out and determine a couple of things. One, that it's not a hoax. And two, to get further details if we have questions, which we always will. Now, as you can imagine, we have many hoax complaints. Beyond that, we receive well-meaning complaints that have zero substance. There are some complaints that are fleeting, such as tropospheric interference, people driving through an area, they suddenly lose cellular coverage. They drive by a car that has XM Sirius radio and similar. We've all heard those. We're broadcasters. But there is another reason why the contact information on the complaint is so vital. And that, again, is so that we can get in touch with you and learn what we need to know to be effective and to do our jobs well. Now, before I start the presentation, I just want to remind you that this covers broadcasting primarily. That's the audience. But, you know, here's just a brief story. Once I was investigating a complaint with another agent. I let myself out of the office to go up the mountain here in Los Angeles. This is from a land mobile radio repeater on a very well-known Los Angeles mountaintop site. And I shared with the technicians who were there representing the licensee how that I was not there just to catch or to punish them, but my efforts are focused on one thing, and that is to make sure that this limited shared spectrum is utilized efficiently by as many as possible. That is what we're after. Now, beyond that, of course, in broadcasting, we have the public safety factors, such as EAS, providing public safety updates in the event of emergency. So let's get started with the complaint portal presentation. There are three types of filers: licensees as a public safety licensee that's experiencing interference, licensees as non-public safety, and we call that enterprise service. And this excludes, however, Part 95 GMRS and Part 97 amateur licensees. We'll get into that in a minute when we talk about the consumer complaint portal. And then there's non-licensees, consumer complaints. There are basically two types of complaints. There is interference and non-interference. And non-interference would be tower lights, pirate broadcaster, which can be both. It could actually be creating interference. We'll get into that in a moment. A low power FM at a wrong location or never built. A translator at a wrong location or one that is originating programming or any other unlicensed operation. The fundamental way that the Enforcement Bureau initiates investigations is from complaints. Complaints are best processed if they include the details and a way to quickly reach the complainant. If a complainant is non-responsive, the Enforcement Bureau may not investigate. Now, this is an important point. The FCC cannot discuss the progress or the findings of an open investigation with a complainant. Please note that.
But you
Helpful
can
information.
acknowledge that it is in progress.
That is correct. That is correct. Now, here's some helpful information that should be included with the complaint. And some of these are a little more generic. They could all apply to broadcasting. As broadcasters, we have many different services under the umbrella. What frequencies are receiving the interference? For example, if it's one of your repeaters, is it the input frequency or the repeater output frequency? Where can the interference be heard? Many sites, as in Los Angeles, have multiple remote pickup sites or ENG sites. It's helpful to know. Now, let me just pause for a moment. You may say these are obvious. Well, sometimes the complaint comes from one of your clients and the general manager is filing them. Okay, so that could happen. So let them know that these items are important. Or you might have a young engineer who really is an IT guy and he wouldn't have any experience of this. We all know that that's where we're at, many stations. So a description of the radio communication system configuration. Simplex, is it duplex? Repeater, is it a base station? Do you know? Analog, digital, is it a simulcast trunk system? Is it a microwave system? When did the interference begin and how often does it occur? Provide audio samples. This is so important because even in the digital signals, we can look at that and try to decide, well, that's probably motor turbo. We know what that sounds like. We can even approach decoders in our investigation so that we're more prepared if we hear it. How is the interference impacting your operations? I cannot tell you how many times we receive complaints on a Friday afternoon at 4:30, and it's from an agency that says, we've been having this complaint for 6 months now, and we need it fixed immediately. It's disastrous for us today. And they've been dealing with it for a long time. And can you provide a log sheet, time, date, duration, description, frequencies? All of this will help us help you. Now, let's get on to the complaint portal, which is really the secret sauce here. It's been in effect for a very short time in broadcasting terms, a couple of years, several years. Start from fcc.gov. Now, when you get to that landing page, you will see that there is this area here called Access Now, and I'm going to start with what would be an enterprise complaint for broadcasters who hold a license. You would click there. Next page, come up here. Now you can select any of the three options. You can select public safety, enterprise, or consumer. Let me back up one slide to the main FCC page. You can also file a public consumer complaint here. We'll get to that in a moment. That might be suitable for something. For example, many of you are ham operators. If you wanted to file a complaint for amateur radio, you could go there. Okay. So click on Enterprise, and that will bring you to this next page. This is the beginning of the Enterprise Interference Complaint Form, and you can read through this, but a couple of things to note is we do have the Operations Center, which is 24/7 and very helpful. So that's a resource. There are some required fields that are noted, and you need to get this done within a certain amount of time or it'll kick you out and you may have to start over. And there's also a submission guide here, which can be helpful. And there's web browser information. So let's get started. You'll need to put in your entity name, and then we want you to put in your FRN number. Why is that? Well, frankly, licensees get a priority. Interference. So this helps us determine where you are, who you are, and puts you higher in the priority list. So that's important. Next slide. Now you can start putting in your contact information. So I have here John Doe, WFCC, 123 Main Street, all these starred areas which need to be put in. Email and phone number, very vital. If in fact you wish to remain anonymous, you can put John Doe or put anonymous or need to remain anonymous. But make sure you give us contact information that is really important, and it needs to be really good contact information. Next slide. You'll be asked to pick your service interference, service experiencing interference. I have selected from this drop-down menu, broadcast, radio, and television. I put in my call sign. I put in my frequency range. That was a drop-down. And I think that this is unlicensed, unauthorized interference. Okay. So I put that into the drop-down. Next slide. Now here's where you put down where you think the interference location is. You can say, hey, just click this box, it's in the previous address, or you can put in an address, or you can put in lat long information, which you can get from your cell phone. Now, next slide indicates the identity of the alleged violator. Now you can click if it's unknown, or you can put in what information that you've deduced, or you can put in latitude and longitude again instead of the address information. Just do the best you can. I hate to say there's no wrong entry. There certainly are wrong entries, but do the best you can to get us started. The better job you do for us in this complaint, exponentially, the better job we can do for you in investigating it. Next slide that you will come to is, do you know the location of the suspected source? I happen to click no on this complaint. You click the next slide and it says, now give us some description. So I said, well, this was a pirate radio station on 101.1. It was playing 70s rock, and it's interfering with my station license to 101.3. I'm a broadcaster in this particular instance. Severity of interference, more than 50%. Number of users affected, 10,000 to 100,000. These are all drop-down options. You select what's appropriate for you. Incident rate, frequently, daily. Duration, continual without stop. That's a pirate. Duration, more than 7 days. Hit the next slide. Has any remedial action been taken? Well, I clicked yes because I said, hey, we located the pirate station, or at least the antenna. We knocked on the door of the house and no one would answer. Okay, put that in there. So now you have an opportunity to review all of your information on the next slide. Then you have the opportunity here to hit submit. Now it will give you an acknowledgement message saying, thank you. We have received your information and you'll receive an email shortly. In that email, there will be a trouble ticket number, which is everything. And you should hang on to that. Okay. By the way, if you're doing this on behalf of one of your clients, you may want to send that to them and their counsel if they're involved. Okay. So you click OK. Now, let's go through the same process for a consumer complaint. This would be something other than a licensed interference complaint, or would include amateur or GMRS. Once again, go to fcc.gov. This is the main page. You can click over here on consumer complaint. You could, of course, hit consumer complaint over on this entry as well, but this is put on the face. By the way, if you're wondering if we receive a lot of these, yes, we do. And they are quite interesting. I'll leave it at that. I instruct people to click on the radio button on the next slide. It will take you to this slide, and here you start putting in your consumer complaint information. Now, again, you won't have an FRN, perhaps. So I put in my email address. I put in, hey, I think it's a pirate radio station, because I'm a consumer at this point. I'm not a broadcast licensee. You can click through the radio issues button. Oh, first, I skipped. You could put in some description, and please do. It's very helpful. I selected pirate unauthorized operation, which was one of the options. It's very small print there, but it's easy to see from the slide that I copied here. Your radio method, I said it was broadcasting, AM, FM, of course. There's other options. I put in my information, 123 Main Street, River City, California, phone number. Am I filing on behalf of someone? No, I'm not. But if you are, please put that information. Now, at the bottom is a place for attachments, and that can be very helpful. I've had folks send pictures of, hey, we found a pirate. Here's a picture of the house. Here's the antenna. I'd like for you to see it. Or here's a spectrum analyzer. Or here's the S meter on the receiver showing all this broadband interference, etc. You can submit that. So then it will email you back. Now, this is the email that I received from our portal. It says, thank you for your submission. Your request has been received and assigned, and this was the ticket number that was next up, and I received that, and that is my important information for researching this further. It gives you some descriptive information about how this all works. Now, what happens is when these get submitted, immediately the three regional field directors, and these are the three regional areas. If it's a enterprise service interference complaint, we call that ESIX, or a PSIX, public safety interference complaint, we receive an email immediately within 30 seconds. That's why this complaint portal is so valuable. It comes to the manager. If it's a consumer complaint, because we receive thousands of those, I honestly don't know how many every day we received. It's very likely hundreds and hundreds every day. So we have a screening process, and that screening process is probably 90% effective. But I also receive a lot of potential scripts for future X-File episodes on that list. And, I have to see how those are pre-screened by others before it gets sent to me. So the consumer complaints take a little bit longer to get to me. For those who are amateur operators, if we do our job well, this gets forwarded to Laura Smith automatically. If it doesn't, who's a special counsel for amateur radio issues, if it doesn't, I will forward it to her. But these are the three regions. The Los Angeles regional office is where I am sitting right now in my office. There is Region 2, which is based out of Atlanta, but they have offices throughout Region 2. I'm from that region. I'm from Florida, so I'm very familiar with that area as well. And then there's Region 1, which is the Northeast, who by far receive the most number of complaints because it's the most population dense. Now, my area also includes Alaska, Hawaii. We do have a field office a manned field office in Honolulu, and then all the islands and such. So I'll receive these complaints and I will assign them to agents, and they will reach out to you. Generally, public safety complaints, we reach out very quickly within 24 hours, others shortly thereafter. And that is how the complaint portal works. Now, this presentation is about the complaint portal. So any other enforcement questions, I would invite you to just send me an email so that I can carefully research any questions you might have. I have had others share with me that they filed complaints. Maybe it was in another region that I'm not responsible for. I'm happy to reach out to the other regional directors. We work together very closely. We're one team. Say, hey, this came in, and they'll say, oh yeah, we're working on that, and they'll get back. But I'm happy to do that too. So, Barry, that's the presentation for today. I encourage everyone to use the complaint portal. It is very effective, very helpful, and it helps us help you. Thank you.
There is a question that's just been posted in the chat, which I would echo. What about severe power line related interference? It's a serious problem to our AMs.
So file it on the complaint portal, and we'll get the complaint. This is about the complaint portal process, not about enforcement, how we do things. That could be another discussion perhaps, but I would certainly research the correct answers so that I give you the best information.
Lark, the most recent, a few years ago, I had a interference issue. Apparently, the ARL had a letter of understanding with the FCC that those kinds of interference complaints go through them first. And I think that was way before this nice new portal was created. Do you know if that's still in effect?
I do know that the ARRL is a official partner with us and amateur enforcement. So, and I do speak with Riley Hollingsworth, who oversees that program, and I believe personally that they are excellent. So they do have a way to file complaints, and that is probably best researched by going to the ARRL website. And if you're not exactly sure, reach out to them. If you do not get an answer from them, email me. I'll make sure that we answer your question. I can tell you, I do recommend that people go to the ARRL first.
I can just state from personal experience, they do a fabulous job. It's a really good setup they have, and it works well.
Can I ask you a question, Lark?
Yes.
I have a client that is getting interfered with, and actually there's 5 of my clients getting interfered by this one particular AM station. And the client would like to get it turned in, but he's like deathly afraid and wants to be anonymous when he files this, either on behalf of the radio station or as the engineer for the radio station. What, I know you mentioned about putting John Doe in there, but what about the call letters of the station? when you're entering in the complaint, how best can he remain or the station be anonymous?
Well, just be honest. To be effective, we need vital information. So we will open a case in our case software tracking system, which is unique and private to us. And I am not an expert on FOIA issues, Freedom of Information Act, but I can tell you that the commission is very sensitive about privacy issues. In fact, just earlier, I told you that I can't tell you how your own complaint is coming along because that's privacy issues for others. So I can't guarantee anything, but I can tell you that we take privacy very seriously. So what to do? Well, first of all, he needs to file a complaint, or his counsel or somebody needs to file a complaint through the portal. And in the notes, I would suggest that he use anonymous, or John Doe, and maybe put another note saying, I need to remain anonymous. But we do need to know the particulars of the interference. Who's being if we don't have a radio station of who's receiving the interference, well, that's a tough putt, as obviously. So this presentation is about the portal. One of the questions I did research, can they be anonymous? And the answer is yes, with the caveat, we have to be able to determine what is a hoax and what is not. You have to remember that we may have to travel 10, 12 hours in a vehicle to get to your city. And we need to know, is this a real complaint? Is it still going on? I ask my agents to call before they leave, the day before. Don't go out looking for interference if it's no longer there, or if it's intermittent. Make sure you know when it's, as best you can, when it's going to be on there. We have a responsibility to the taxpayer to, spend our time wisely. We have a lot of cases. I hope that's helpful.
Yes, thank you. And also, oh shoot, I put it in the chat on the broadcaster's page to make a complaint. Was there ability to put attachments on that page? I know on the consumer page I saw the attachment link.
Yes, I believe there is, but I will share this with you. When we reach out to you, oftentimes those attachments can come back then, on emails. Some attachments are maybe too large for the system. Maybe it didn't make it through for some reason. And, we have various techniques to deal with that.
Great, thank you.
How about more or maybe less specific complaints? For instance, from LED stoplights that in Texas, TxDOT apparently got a cheap Chinese supplier and is changing out all the LED bulbs in their stoplights. And you pull up underneath one and it just obliterates AM radio. Same thing for some trucks when you go past them on the interstate or something. You get right about the cab and there's some kind of interference that comes out of the truck, obviously. But I mean, it's a moving target. I have no idea what the FCC can do about this. The horse is out of the barn, but it's a problem, and it's affecting radio. Would it be appropriate to use this?
Was that a question?
I'm sorry. Well, it's a question.
Yes, it would.
Would this be an appropriate place to complain about that? Because I'm not sure if anybody in the FCC really knows what's going on some of this stuff.
So, file a complaint. And, if you don't file a complaint, we certainly wouldn't know. Now, what can be done about it will have to be investigated. I will share with you, I've had many times engineers vent because I'm a broadcast engineer, underneath all the degrees and such. And I still sweep the floors and chase out the snakes, whatever, I go out to sites when I can. And he asked me about a specific issue, which if I were to bring it up, you would all gasp and say, oh, shake your heads. Oh, yeah, it's terrible. So have you filed a complaint? Well, no, because I'm a contractor and I don't want to lose business. I said, well, that's a very fair response, but you can't have it both ways. Is the commission going to immediately act on a problem that has, quote, already left the barn? Remains to be seen. You must file the complaint for us to find out. This is about the complaint portal. And I want to make sure that you all know it's available to you. And we will do our best. So I've got to jump. Does anybody have any complaint portal questions for me before I jump?
Let me just, I just got my internet back and missed some of what you were doing, but I number one, want to thank you very much for coming in and doing this for us. Number two, I'd like to invite you back, and maybe we could discuss a topic like Chuck just brought up as to when there is interference, what can be done. And again, some of the things you can handle, and some of the things may be a policy issue or for other reasons. And the one that so many of us with AM experience talk about is this LED light thing. But that's another day's discussion. And I'd also like to invite you back, if you would, to talk to us about an inspection and what people can do now that the self-inspection booklet is a decade out of date, and how to stay in compliance.
Well, I look forward to any further invitation. And the really nice thing about the Office of the Field Director is we have some great people, many with broadcast experience, many with deep engineering background. Mike Rhodes, of course, Michael Rhodes joined us recently as the National Field Director. Earlier, I saw he was on this call. I'm not sure if he still is or not, but so we do have people with pretty deep knowledge and in the broadcast industry as well.
I did have a question here. Somebody wanted to know, could you identify the Region 1 and 2 directors?
They're available online. If you look them up, you will see that David Dombrowski is Region 1, and Diedrich Roybisky is Region 2. For proper spelling and email, just go to our webpage or send me an email. Listen, if anybody's got any questions, you can send me an email and I will research your answer. Even if it's not Region 3, I'll try to get a hold of my peers and colleagues. They're really great. We've got some really great people. And, we just don't have as many.
Very much appreciate.
Don't have as many as we did in the olden days.
Yeah, you and I will have a chat, and we will have a pointed, specific topic, because I really want to invite you back again and again.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me, guys. But you have my email address. Please send me if you have any questions, and I'll do my best to get back to you. And again, just wonderful thanks to all the folks on here that I know personally. It is just an honor to be your colleagues. It really is. Once a broadcaster, always a broadcaster.
Between Zoom and YouTube, we have something on the order of 80 odd people watching today. And they'll be obviously posting the video. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Some of us are more odd
See you
than
next
others.
time. See you next time.